Hello and welcome to Friendly Neighborhood Gamer. I'm your host Bear, and tonight we'll be talking about settings. My friend Sean Blythe, awesome person, he bought me this book. It's the Hot Springs Islands series. I've been told to shimmy with it or something so you can see how cool the cover is. The artwork is amazing. It's a hex map setting that the players are exploring an exotic island and going through it. Great book. I'm excited to get into it with you guys. This led me down a rabbit hole looking for other settings that had hex maps, which led me to Neverland, which based Peter Pan going around Neverland using a hex map, taking your characters through it. I really enjoyed running this for my group. It was fun to have them not know that they were in Neverland, and then they start seeing things. They're like, wait a minute. It's fun. I'm excited to go through this. This led me down another rabbit hole because I enjoyed that book so much, into Oz. These are made by the same person, Oz and Neverland, where they're using those works of art and turning them into scenarios for people to play. This is a totally different game than Neverland. It's not hex map at all. In fact, it's more of a political game. It's very exciting. It's very fun to play, and I've enjoyed bringing it to the table. I'm excited to tell you about not only this, but all three tonight. So without further ado, let's get to the table. The first thing we're going to talk about tonight is the Hot Springs Island. There's two books that come with this. The one that we're going to be looking at tonight is The Dark. I don't know if you can see that. It is pretty dark in the writing. This is the GM's version of the book, whereas the other one is The Light, and that is essentially the player guide that you give to the characters. Your characters come to this island working for a company that's essentially the East India Trade Company to exploit it, take its resources, and bring it back to the real world. Unfortunately, there's a lot of things going on. The first thing that drew me to this game is the map. I love a good hex crawl. You put your characters somewhere and they're kind of moving around the world. What makes this one very interesting is it's a pretty living world. Each one of these hexes has a whole table of what you can find there and then what could happen there. And you roll this out randomly before the characters get there. Oh my God, the artwork in this book is amazing. Hands down, I think it's some of the best drawing that I've seen. It's, as far as like nothing that's intricate or fancy, it looks like someone who was just kind of like doodling, because that's the point. You're looking through this as somebody who's going through, and they've gotten their guidebook and they've explored this place and trying to draw it real quick. And the way they did that is interesting. So as far as intrigue goes, the amount of things that can happen on this island, the factions that are there, the way you can build, working with one faction versus another one, the direction you go, it's a perfect sandbox to throw your characters in there and kind of see what they do. And then running this for another group of players, they could go a totally different direction. If they don't like working with a particular group of characters, they can go a totally different direction. So this hex map led me to looking for further hex maps. And that's where we're going to go into our next book. So the next book we're going to talk about is Neverland. It's a fantasy setting that you can apply for anything. All of these books are set for D&D 5th edition. Not 5.5, but just regular 5th edition. That being said, they're not hard to translate over into whatever fantasy or setting that you'd want to use. This one's a little more polished, and I think that's kind of the point. The company that is doing this, it looks like a book you'd have on your shelf versus the other one was like hand-drawn things because they wanted it to look like a guide. This is a little more polished. The artwork is very different than the previous one. It's a little, I wouldn't say not as good, but I do like the color scheming with things, trying to keep it right. And again, this is taking a childhood fantasy and turning it into a D&D campaign. Using this was very fun, throwing characters into this world and them not knowing that they were in Neverland. Not, I think it was actually the crocodile. And here's the calendar that you can keep track of what the crocodile's doing. It's following the different moon phases. I think the crocodile is what gave it away. That my players were like, holy crap, I think we're in Neverland. And then when the Lost Boys showed up, of course, nothing is more fun than murdering flying children. But overall, I feel like this adds a lot to the Neverland story, myth, the things that we know as children watching the Disney movies, reading the stories, watching Hook. I think this adds a lot to it. This is definitely set after the fact when Peter Pan is still there, but the Darlings are no longer around on the island. It adds a lot of different creatures and depth to the world that is a fantasy setting that I feel like is a good thing. It does it very similarly to the previous book we were talking about with the hex map and making it into a living environment and finding out what creatures would be likely to be there and how they would react, and sometimes like making them fight or setting up a scenario so that your characters are moving through a hex map that is essentially a living world. It has a little bit of stories in the back so you can kind of get the feel for it. I was trying to get to the actual, it has a fold-out map in the back. Of course, Blue's gonna fuss at me because I'm moving stuff, but here's the map. Again, whenever I do a hex map with my players, I don't like to let them know where they're at. So I make them draw a map and add stuff to it. I explain that they're on a hex map, and I try to keep this map secret from them. Because having a player drawn map is much more interesting. But again, hands down, while I would not rate this as highly as I would the Hot Springs Island, this is definitely at least an 8 for me. Solid choice. This led me to his next book, which I'll bring up now. So this last book, again, done by the same guy, Andrew Kolb, I kind of went into this blind. I really enjoyed the way Neverland looked and how it played when I got to the table. So I said, oh crap, he's got another book. I'm gonna check it out. And I bought Oz. Oz is a totally different creature. It is, again, using something that we're all pretty familiar with, the land of Oz. But especially with the Wicked movie just coming out, this is kind of a big deal. This is not a hex map at all. This is a very different beast where you've got basically the players trying to vie for control of the city of Oz. It is cutthroat. It is a political intrigue game. It is not the same thing as the previous two, which again, I didn't know going in. I just knew that I liked Andrew Kolb and I liked his previous work with Neverland, and I wanted to check it out. This one is not as handholdy. It does follow the same kind of guidelines for art. It's got that, I'm not very good with fancy art names, but it's got that like 1920s-esque type art look. And this one doesn't hold your hand when it comes to setting up the environment. It kind of gives you a couple options of who you can put in power and how you can change the power dynamic that is inside of Oz. It gives you a plethora of magic items you can sprinkle around because that's what shows who is in control of different portions of Oz. And it gives you it gives you the stats for them, all the characters, but it's up to you as the GM to set Oz up before the players get there because they're going to be dealing with these people who are in power. And whether you want it to be super corrupt or if you want it to be super honorable or however you want to set Oz up, that's a way to do it. One thing I did find interesting is that it doesn't use the word Jack Pumpkinhead. That's from the sequel to Oz. It doesn't use the Wicked Witch. It uses the Wicked Lich. I think they had like an issue with copyright infringement, maybe because of Wicked coming out. I'm not sure, but you all know what they mean. It's definitely a solid game. It just is gonna, from the viewpoint of the GM, it's going to take quite a bit of work on your end to set it up initially so that you know how your players are going to react to the political landscape that you're dropping them into. Not to say that this is all political intrigue. There is definitely plenty of combat. There's plenty of opportunity to get your characters in trouble in fighting. It's just that the way this is set up, it looks like political intrigue would be a very large part of maneuvering through the city. But I have enjoyed getting this to the table. I've run this for a one-shot, just trying to make it, a quick, brief jaunt through it. But this game does not do justice as a one-shot. It definitely needs to be something that your characters are going to run through. So let's kind of flip through and show you guys different pictures. But the artwork, again, it's not, I would say the Hot Springs Island thus far tonight, out of these 3 books, is the best artwork. But again, solid. I would say like a 7.5 or an 8 for both this and Neverland. So we've talked about 3 different settings, 2 of which by things that we know pretty much about, Oz and Neverland. One being a hex map, the other one being more of a political intrigue type game. And then the third one, also a hex map, is the Hot Springs Island. All 3 of these are great settings to throw your characters into. I, again, like that mysterious, not letting players know where they're at or what's going on and figuring things out and having them draw the wrong conclusion sometimes. That's just fun, making them draw the map. With Oz, that's a lot more work up front for the GM, having to set that political intrigue. But overall, solid choices for settings. I would definitely recommend checking them out and running them for your players. Having these kind of settings already in your back pocket so you can throw your players into them is a great suggestion, and they're pretty easy to get off of Amazon or most places that you would get your role-playing supplies. So without further ado, I appreciate you guys talking to me tonight and listening. You guys didn't talk. If you are, I couldn't hear you. And I look forward to being up here again for you and discussing more role-playing and gaming things. Thanks for coming, and we'll talk to you later.